Welcome back to Digital Tutors. In this lesson, we're going to talk about editing to music, which is something that you end up doing a lot of times with these action edits, is using music as the impetus to drive the scene, using music as the impetus to choose where you're cutting. Because we've already gone through here in this rough cut and we've matched the action a whole bunch. And we have a couple of different sections of it that are separated out, but it's already a decent little cut put together in multiple different forms. I didn't cut it down nearly as much as I told you to. Haha, sorry. But there's also a bunch of spaces in here, if you will take a look at that and see that that takes away a lot of it. This is definitely a lot more than 45 seconds, but I just wanted to give you lots of different options. So feel free to pick up from where this lesson is, or you can just do these steps in your particular edit, which would probably actually be a little bit more beneficial to you. But if you want to take a look at the rough cut that I kind of put together from that string out, be my guest, use this. Lots of options, just so that you can really get a feel for what you're doing. So the first thing we're going to do is import in our music. So I can just double click on here, or go File, Import, or do Command or Control I, and I have some music in this folder. And again, maintaining my folder structure. As I put more things in here, I keep everything in this main folder, so everything is still in this action editing folder on my desktop in this case, and within that folder is just folders, so keep that organization. Import that in. Here we have our music. We're going to be using this one. And so when you're using a music track or a sound effect in general, it's going to look a little bit different because you don't have visuals with it. It's just a waveform. And so you can go through here and you can zoom in just like you normally would. And if you're not used to waveforms, it's a good thing to kind of get used to it. You can tell where the loud sounds are. Let's just listen to this for a second. I'm going to make sure my computer's not too loud. Now, when you first start, any kind of MP3 or sound you bring in here is usually going to be really, really loud. So just be prepared for that. I've turned my computer down almost as quiet as it can go. And you can see when it's reading in here, it's going all the way into the red. So just be wary. I've seen a lot of editors jump out of their seats because they put a music track in, press play, don't adjust their volume, and then they're in a world of hurt for a few seconds. So there's a couple different movements to this. So you can hear there that it repeats. This is a lot more rhythmic. There's not a lot of backbeat to it or a lot of back music to it. But then starting right about here is where it repeats again. And I can always just zoom in by using plus or minus and use your arrow keys to find that next movement. So if I press my in point there, now what I have is that same song, but from a little bit more dynamically interesting part. So the first thing that you want to do when you're bringing in music is make sure that you know how to work with that music. You don't have to start at the beginning of the song and end at the end of the song. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this right here. If you grab this little waveform looking dude and drag it down, now we can zoom in. And I tend to like to leave a second or so of black at the beginning of my edit just so I can feel the way it starts. Because if you start it here, you don't really feel the way the audience is going to see it because they're going to be looking at the screen, it's going to be black, and then it's going to start playing. So let's just see how this music works together. You can tell that those are a little bit off. The first thing that I like to do when I'm editing to music is to drag down my audio track so I can see the waveforms a little bit more. This line right here is your volume. If that is not showing up, then you go to this timeline display settings and you turn on your audio waveform. Okay? Because you want to be able to affect it down here. And then I can also use my pen tool to make it quieter or louder. This is basically how you mix your audio. In this case, I don't want to do that, so I'll just Command Z it all, because I want it to be a hard cut in. but I also want to make sure it comes in at -12. You don't want it to be overloading the speakers. -12 is your average. So drag this down until it's kind of coming in at about that. That's a good start. So you can see it's not all at -12, but it's averaging out to be around there. So now we have a nice beginning. And you have to look for the hard cuts, because you either want to edit directly on beats when you're editing the music, or you want to completely avoid the beats. In a song like this, it's pretty much nothing but beats. There's beats every other little bit. So in this, if this is a song you're using, you want to cut directly on those beats. So this is a cut pretty close. It's 1 frame off. So even though we've gone through and we've matched our action, what I want to do is make sure that everything is cut to the beat. So since that was 1 frame off, I'll move it over. And some beats are better than others. That is a nice hard beat. So even though that's not exactly what we want, you might want, or what we wanted when we originally did our rough cut, you might want to find those hard beats and cut to them. And there's another one. So the song in this case is telling me where I want to cut. And now those seem really long because of the song. So I'll go through and change those. And so you can kind of get a sense for how you can move all this stuff over and cut it together. And there's another perfect example of the cut. See, it's a few frames off, so I can just use my arrow tool. If I hold shift, then it'll just do this track. Drag that over. So this music is really dictating my edit. And again, you can always go through here and change that too. If you're going to get to a point where you need to put an interview in there and the backbeat is too heavy, there's too much percussion. Percussion is kind of distracting over somebody's voice. You can always cut up this scene the same way. So just go in and find a stanza. That's a good changing point. Right there, I can just use my cut tool. And now, let's find another. You can see how I could get rid of that part if I wanted to. Or we could extend stuff out. Right? You can go through and find those little stanzas and stitch them together, and always listen. Make sure you listen before you start editing from that point on. You want to make sure that when you get rid of things and move them together, that they actually work. You don't have a frame that's repeated or anything like that. So you can go through and you can change this song. Even though this song is only 40 something seconds long, you could make it 2 minutes long. You can make it 10 seconds long. You have all these different parts of the song that you can chop up and recreate. And then you have all these edits that you can use and match to those frames. So take a few minutes, go through, import a song. It doesn't have to be the one that I have here. It's a really easy one to edit to, so that's why it's in here, and it's copyright free. So it's good to get in the habit of not using copyrighted music, because that's a way that a lot of editors get into trouble. Just never use anything that's copyrighted and you can avoid a lot of problems. So go through, use your edits, use the song, chop it up, change the length of the song, make it all work, and then when you're ready, come on back for the next lesson.